إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. Dear respected brothers and sisters, my topic today, I'll call it healing. But before we talk about that, I want to share with you a story, a beautiful story from our rich history as Muslims. But first I want you to imagine doing something for 20 years. For some of us, that seems like a long time. For we don't know what it means to be dedicated to do something day in and day out for 20 years. I'm 36-year-old tomorrow, inshallah. The longest I have done something consistently in my life as far as like a career or occupation or something I was dedicated to day in and day out and I had a responsibility has been almost the last 7 years of my life. That I have been blessed with the opportunity to serve you as the Executive Director of the Council on American Islamic Relations, Oklahoma chapter. But still, that's about 13 years off from 20 years. The closest thing I can think of would be my father, who has worked at Langston University for more than 20 years. Every day, no matter how easy or how difficult, he gets up and he goes to work. So think about the commitment it takes to do something for 2 decades. Well, looking back in our history, we can see that after more than 20 years of spreading a message of peace, a message of love, a message of mercy and compassion, after 20 years of spreading a message of salvation, the salvation for one soul in this life and perhaps more importantly in the next, in exchange for complete submission to your Creator, after 20 years of struggle, of strive, of loss and gain, after 20 years of recognizing that the Kaaba, the building that we as Muslims hope that once in our life, that one time before we take our final breath, our eyes will be blessed with the opportunity to see the house that was built for the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and perhaps even touch that building. After 20 years of recognizing that the Kaaba was built by the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam and his son for the worship of the one true God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that was defiled by the presence of idols, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam returned to Mecca. Its gates were open for the Muslims, and he walked into the house that Ibrahim built, into the Kaaba. Of course, at this point in time, there were idols surrounding the Kaaba inside and out, on top and all around. The idolaters of Arabia watched as the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, as he smashed and broke idol after idol. And he recited verse 81 from chapter 17 of the Holy Quran that reads, "And say, the truth has come and falsehood has vanished. Falsehood is bound to vanish." The walls of the Kaaba had been disgraced with pictures of pagan deities, and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam ordered that they all be destroyed with one exception. If you find pictures of Jesus or his mother Mary, you should respect them. You should preserve them. Of course, at this point, with all the commotion going on around the Kaaba, the Quraysh had left their homes and left the marketplace. And they made their way towards the Kaaba, and they waited as the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as he walked out from the structure. As he walked out, he stood in front of the house built for the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he begged the people. He said, lay aside your arrogance and the self-sufficiency of the times of ignorance or jahiliyyah, which has only caused conflict and injustice. He sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, O Quraysh, behold, God has removed from you the arrogance of jahiliyyah with its boast of ancestral glories. Man is simply a God-conscious believer or an unfortunate sinner. All people are children of Adam, and Adam was created from dust. Finally, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam quoted the words that were given to him from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, words that have been delivered as a message for all humanity. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in these beautiful verses, behold, we have created you out of a single male and a single female, and made you into different nations and tribes, so that you may come to know one another. This is, brothers and sisters, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful verses in the Quran, and they're all beautiful. But I think in this day and time, when we're suffering from so much division and hatred and animosity between people, between humanity, all based on the color of our skin. I mean, it's 2019, for God's sake. Who would have thought that in 2019, we're still having issues because my skin is one color and someone else's skin is another color, or because I'm Muslim and someone is Christian, or someone is Jew, or something is this or something is that? What happened to our humanity? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala points to that humanity and tells us that we were created from one source. We have one original source, which is Adam and Eve, one male and one female. We were made into different cultures and races and ethnicities. The fact that you look around and you see different skin colors, and we speak different languages, and maybe I'm going to go home and I'm going to eat matluba, but you're going to eat biryani, it doesn't matter. Because these differences were created so that we can come to know one another. Verily, the noblest of you in the sight of God is the one who is most deeply conscious of Him. Beware, God is all-knowing, all-aware. This beautiful diversity that exists around the globe, this diversity that we should be celebrating, is part of the design of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as Muslims, I hope we celebrate our diversity. I hope that we cherish the fact that we come from all different countries, that we come from all different walks of life, and we should celebrate and share with our fellow human beings, but especially in America, our fellow Americans, the fact that Islam is, without a doubt, the most diverse religion in this country. And if we, as people, can come together, who knows, in the state of Oklahoma, 10, 15, 20,000 Muslims every Friday coming together for Jumu'ah prayer. We have nothing in common. Or if we have nothing in common, I should say, the one thing we have in common is the fact that we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we follow the messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And this is a message we should be sharing with humanity, just like the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is sharing with the Quraysh at that time. That if you want to see how to bring people together, Islam is an example of unity, and if you need further proof of that, look at the letter that Malcolm X wrote back to America when he went to Hajj. The very letter that said that the people of America need to know Islam because Islam is the solution for the problem of racism in America. Excuse me. The Prophet ﷺ continued, the truly noble one was no longer the one who was most aggressive, but the one who was filled with fear and awe of their Creator. The purpose of the tribe and the nation was not to exalt its superiority, that people must not seek to dominate, exploit, conquer, or destroy other people, but to build bridges of respect and understanding. The experience of living in a group, of coexisting with people, some of whom, despite their kinship, would not be pleasant to be around or not even friendly, would prepare the tribesmen or the patriot for interacting with people beyond their culture, race, or ethnicity. It would lead to an appreciation for the human race. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he had managed to redefine the concept of nobility in Arabia and replaced it with a more universal, compassionate, and self-effacing ideal that more than 1,400 years later, we as Muslims here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in America, and all around the globe hope to emulate. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy and aid us in following the example of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So a few lessons we can take from this. Number one is the dedication. It goes without saying, but for emphasis, look at the dedication of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we must ask ourselves, do we give up or are we truly dedicated? Are we truly dedicated to our mission in promoting truth and justice? Are we truly dedicated to serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and serving the deen of Islam? Or do we give up when a few challenges come our way? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, day in and day out, there was no 8 to 5. There were no holidays or vacations or summer breaks. He was dedicated 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So that's the first lesson. The second lesson is that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what did he fight for? What was one of the major things that he fought for? It was unity. It was despite all the differences, despite the bloodshed, despite all of the loss and the sacrifice, at the end of the day, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam was willing to put all of those things to the side, all of the pain and the anguish that he went through, all of the loss that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam suffered, to say, let us come together. Let us come together as Muslims under the banner of La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. And let us come together as human beings under the banner of humanity. That whether we believe together or not, we all still come from the same source. And after all, it is the mercy and compassion and the love of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that caused people to convert to Islam in the first place. Therefore, if we are only looking at trying to work for the good of our own community, if we're only looking to work for the good of what's within these four walls or within the gates of this beautiful complex, then we have failed in following the mission of our beloved Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We have to work beyond these walls. We have to work in society. And we have got to show people the example, not through talk, although talk is okay sometimes, but through action. Yesterday, I was inspired by something beautiful that took place. You may have heard it on the news, that the Oklahoma Democratic Party, they have a Democratic Party in Oklahoma City, they have a headquarters. It was vandalized overnight. Very hateful things, and as Muslims, we know what that feels like. We've experienced this as a community. Very hateful, anti-Semitic, you know, words, curse words, things that you wouldn't want your own children to see. And what happened? Who was one of the first people on the scene? Was our Imam Imad and Chasi. May Allah bless him and help him in this effort, inshallah. He was one of the first on the scene. One of the second on the scene was the head of the Republican Party. And I'm not trying to delve into politics, I'm just saying they put their differences aside and said, we are not going to let hate divide us. There was an Imam, there were Christians, there were Jews, there were people from other political parties, there were people, even atheists who don't believe in God, but they came together under the banner of humanity and said, we are going to literally and figuratively wash away this hate in our city and our state. So we want to follow the example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the absolute best example for all of humanity, inshallah. And I leave you with a few questions to ask ourselves. Take an inventory of what we are doing. We all profess this love for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but how much do we struggle to follow this example and do it consistently? We must ask ourselves, do we fight for justice for all people? As they say, justice is not just for us. But as Muslims, as people who follow this example, we can't just say we want to fight for us. So when Islamophobia plagues our community, or there are hate crimes, or there is that, just like the horrific attack in New Zealand, where we lost 50 of our brothers and sisters, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept them as shaheed, inshallah. We don't want to just be there and be present and speak up when things impact us. Because I tell you, when that horrific crime occurred, what I saw in Oklahoma, and you see it here in the lobby, flowers and letters. You saw it in all the masajid around the state. And in my office in Oklahoma City, at the CARE Oklahoma office, within an hour we had a dozen people from different faith communities standing with Muslims saying, we see you, we hear you, we love you, and you deserve to be able to enter into your house of worship and worship without being in fear of your safety and your security. But this comes, brothers and sisters, when we follow in the example of our beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and when we fight for what is right for all people, humanity. Do we fight for justice? Do we work to combat racism? Do we work to challenge gender equalities? Do we stand for one another regardless of our race, ethnic, or cultural backgrounds? Do we work towards smashing the idols that may exist within our own lives? And I don't mean literal idols like things you worship, but I'm talking about things that may get in the way of our worship and our efforts to do good in society. Do we put our ego aside in establishing the greater good and peace on earth and unity? Do we sacrifice to fight against hate and animosity, no matter how small it is? Have we advanced as people? We are very advanced in building buildings. Alhamdulillah, that's a good thing. But have we advanced in terms of building people? And honestly, this is one reason why I love our Islamic schools. Because the schools, Mercy School, Peace Academy, and the youth programmings in our masajid, they are doing what the Prophet ﷺ did, which is taking our young people and taking people and saying, we are going to build you. Because when the Prophet ﷺ, and I leave you with this at the end of the first part, when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, what did he have? You and I know. It's not the masjid we visit nowadays. That grand and beautiful masjid in Medina is not what the Prophet ﷺ left. He left a very humble home. A very humble masjid that if you or I were to look at it today, we would say, what's wrong with this? You know? Why the masjid is falling apart doesn't look nice. Because we have now higher expectations. Alhamdulillah, that's okay. But I'm saying, when the Prophet ﷺ, when he left this earth, it wasn't about a grand building with chandeliers and gold and nice carpets, but it was about the people that he left behind. And it's because of those people that we went from one person to 1.8 billion people and continuing to grow, inshallah. I seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you and for me and for all the Muslims in the world, asking for forgiveness, for He is the forgiver, the merciful. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. Dear brothers and sisters, many of you know me, but I'll just mention it again. My name is Adam Soltani. I'm the Executive Director of CARE Oklahoma, and I say that with great respect for all of you and really a lot of gratitude in my heart. Because I recognize that every day the opportunity to serve you and serve all the Muslims around the state and trying to protect our rights and to have a voice for our community, whether it be in the media or at our capital or with the city councils or wherever it may be, is a privilege and a blessing. So thank you for that. I want to tell you a story, a bit of a difficult story. But as you know, as Muslims in America, we have a lot of great challenges. And I don't think we should focus too much on the negativity, but we have to recognize the challenges that still exist to today. Of course, we saw it as the world watched what happened in New Zealand. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all Muslims around the world from ever facing such a horrific crime like that again. But let me tell you about something that happened here in Oklahoma that really hurt me deeply. And we can all relate to this. Think of this in the story. If you're married, you have a wife, or if you have a mom, or if you have a sister, or if you're older and your kids are grown, it can happen, unfortunately, to any of us. So right after the new year, I returned to my office, and I got a phone call. There was a family from Enid, Oklahoma, who lived there for a long time. I mean, really, they were just part of the community, you know? Never had a problem or anything. And they decided to do what a lot of us would do on a holiday weekend, and they went to Dallas, Texas. And they went to a place called Reunion Tower, had a dinner, and it was a very cold night. So the husband said to his wife and kids, what any of us would probably do is, you stay here in the warmth and let me go get the car and pull up, you can hop in the car. He's gone a few minutes. While he was gone, our sister, by the name of Janan, was approached by another woman who started to ask her some very concerning questions about her hijab and about Islam and Muslims. And when she tried to reply to her, this woman got even more hostile. And she started to say very hateful things and ripped her off her hijab, hit her over the head several times, resulting in a trip to the ER to find out that she had a concussion. What makes it even worse is that this happened in front of her 10-year-old daughter. A child that will have to grow up with the memory that her mom was physically and verbally assaulted only because she wears hijab, but even more so because just like us, she professes belief in La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. This goes without saying, but these kinds of things should not be happening. These horrific incidences should not be taking place. The world, and I'm talking about the world, whether it's Oklahoma or New Zealand or anywhere else, the world deserves better than this. And as Muslims, we have a responsibility to stand up for what is right, and to stand up for justice, and to stand up for ourselves, but more importantly, to stand up for humanity. Because we cannot allow hate to continue in society. We cannot allow violence to continue in society. We have got to engage with the world around us in any way, in every way possible, not only to show people who we are as Muslims, and to set a good example, but we have got to fight for making this world a better place. Because I don't want my children, who are 3 and 6 years old, having to grow up in this world. And I know you don't either. The challenges seem to be endless sometimes. The hate continues. Islamophobia is a real issue in our country. We must ask ourselves, how can we as Muslims in America, how can we come together to combat and challenge this hate? And I'll give you some thoughts. But first, let's return back to the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In his final sermon, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he left some beautiful words that always resonate through my mind when I think about who we are as a community and what we are capable of doing, what good we can bring to humanity. The Prophet ﷺ said, "O people, listen well to my words, for I do not know whether after this year I shall ever be among you again. Therefore listen to what I am saying to you carefully and take these words to those who could not be present today." And I want to focus on this part. "O people, listen to me in earnest, worship God, perform your 5 daily prayers, fast during the month of Ramadan, and give your zakat of your wealth. Perform Hajj if you can afford it. All mankind is from Adam and Eve. An Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab, nor a non-Arab has any superiority over an Arab. Also a white has no superiority over a black, nor a black has any superiority over a white, except by piety and good action. Learn that every Muslim is a brother to every Muslim, and that the Muslims constitute one brotherhood. Nothing shall be legitimate to a Muslim which does not belong to a fellow Muslim unless given freely and willingly. Therefore, do not do injustice to yourselves." This is the beautiful words that the Prophet ﷺ left us with. Showing us that, again, reminding us the basis of our unity, and that the only one that is considered better than another, unlike what a lot of other people believe, that they think they're better and they boast because of their skin color or their wealth or some position that they hold. All that is temporary and will go away just as quickly as it came. But the only thing that will be everlasting and the only thing that makes one of us better than the other is, are we pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Our piety and our good actions. And that's nothing that either you or I can judge. That is only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we must follow the way of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And I told you early on that my topic is healing. I believe that the way to healing, the path to healing, lies only in the example of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That we follow that path. We stay dedicated. We don't give up. We hold on to La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. And we fight for humanity just like the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam did. And we will begin to see change sweep across our state, our country, and the entire world. And I give you one good story to leave you with, inshallah. You may be aware that as a Muslim community, alhamdulillah, for the last 5 years we have done our Muslim Day at the Capitol. The first year we had our Muslim Day at the Capitol, and some of you may have been there. I remember it just like it was yesterday. It was the last Friday in February. It was very cold, and there were about 150 of us that decided to show up at the Capitol. But we were not super energetic that day. We were actually a little bit scared because we had never done that before. But we knew that as a Muslim community, we had to show up because we had had enough of being targeted by hateful individuals. This was a state, after all, that in 2010, 70% of the people that showed up to vote on November 2010 voted to ban Sharia law from Oklahoma. This is the same state where a former representative by the name of John Bennett spent years without anybody telling him to sit down and shut up. He spent years attacking our community, calling calling us a cancer that needs to be cut out of America, telling us that I've read the Quran and it's 90% violent. The man knew nothing about Islam and he had no right to say any of that garbage. But he did, and nobody stopped him. So we finally said, okay, if nobody's going to stop this, we're going to show up and we're going to learn as a community of believers. We're going to learn about this democratic process. We're going to learn what it means to engage with those who are elected to lead us. And we're going to learn what it means to advocate for better things in our state and our country. So the first year we showed up, and so did 3 dozen protesters. We were scared, but we didn't let that stop us. We showed up, we stayed, and we showed up again in year 2. Protesters showed up too. We showed up again in year 3. Protesters showed up too. We showed up again in year 4. And there were still protesters and there were still legislators at the Capitol saying very hateful things. But what did we do? Because CARE Oklahoma is an organization, brothers and sisters, it is an organization that is faith-led. Faith-led and justice-driven. It is our faith. It is the Quran and the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that leads us to the actions that we take. And it is justice that drives us to do the work we do every day. So in sticking with the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we didn't give up. As a community, we didn't give up. And here we are 5 years later, March 4th of 2019, a day that should go down in the history books of Oklahoma. But if they're not going to take it down, it's going to go down in our history books because we're keeping track and we're paying attention. We kept up for 5 years. We didn't let the hate stop us. We didn't let the protesters stop us. We didn't let the fear overcome us. But we held our heads high and we said, we are proud to be Oklahoman, we are proud to be American, and more importantly, we're proud to be Muslim, and we are not going to go away just because a few hateful people want us to. So we showed up on our 5th year, March 4th, 2019. And one of the first things I saw was a Republican legislator from Stillwater, Oklahoma, come and say, I welcome you Muslims here. Where is your imam? I want to give him a hug. And throughout the day, we saw a dozen legislators, regardless of what party they were for, come and say, I welcome you to the Capitol. As Muslims, you deserve to be here. You have a right to be here. You have a voice that needs to be heard, and we are glad that you are here. But to my surprise, something else happened. Something that we didn't even ask for. Is that while we were in the midst of our sessions, I was walking the hall because I got a phone call, so I stepped out, and I ran into the newly elected governor of our state. And he said, where are the Muslims? I said, uh-oh, what does he want to do with the Muslims? So I can show you. Do you need something? He said, I just want to say hi and say, we are glad that you are here. We don't need his approval. We've been showing up for 4 years. We had nobody's approval. But if we are consistent, if we continue to hold on to the flag of Islam and we are proud of who we are and we show people that we are not going to go away, that we are not a cancer to this society and you won't cut us out, but we are part of the fabric of this nation and you need Muslims in this country, then they will show up and they will say, welcome. And that's exactly what happened. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala aid us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthen our hearts. May Allah guide our souls. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those who are righteous, honest, and always thankful. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless our families and protect our children. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us to following the best example of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. May Allah make us a source of relief to our parents. May Allah give us the ability to make our parents happy. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us wisdom and beneficial knowledge. May Allah protect us and grant us success in this life and the hereafter. And before we pray, dear brothers and sisters, please give me just 2 minutes, inshallah, after the khutbah, to ask you for support for CARE Oklahoma. It is with honor and with pride that we serve this community.